Hey, good evening. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. I wanted to post a video update for Hurricane and Hurricane HD outlining the latest information on Tropical Depression 5 based on the 11 p.m. advisory. This is the new forecast track, which you've probably already seen in your Hurricane or Hurricane HD app. Looking like it could be a hurricane as it nears Jamaica, but first it has to pass through the Lesser Antilles here, maybe to the north of Barbados, which is right there, as a slowly strengthening tropical storm, and we'll have to really watch it when it gets into this area. The Euro, the ECMWF model, saying no development through here, and it weakens it to a tropical wave, whereas the GFS global model indicating a much better upper environment through this region, and especially over here, and that is the reason why it looks like it could become a hurricane. So an interesting duel between two very well respected global models. Now what I wanted to do is read the discussion from forecaster Stewart here. I know you can't see this, but I'll read it to you, and then I'm going to show you what he's talking about. I think this could be fascinating and help you understand the reasoning behind the forecast. So this is as of 11 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, or Atlantic Standard Time, same thing. Alright, so the forecaster says, since the previous advisory, convection associated with the depression has waned. However, it is not unusual for convection to fluctuate in association with weak and developing tropical cyclones. Erosion of the inner core convection is also likely due to the entrainment of dry mid-level air into the northwest quadrant, as noted in various water vapor products over the past 8 hours. The initial intensity remains at 30 knots, which is supported by University of Wisconsin CIMSS ADT intensity estimate. This is just a particular product that they have from the University of Wisconsin that the forecaster is referring to, and thus the intensity estimate is a T number of 2.2 equating to 32 knots. So this is sort of some scientific reasoning behind why the intensity is set to 35 miles per hour. Next paragraph talks about the motion initially and the forecast track. The initial motion remains 285 degrees. If you think of a compass, 270 is due west, so 15 degrees north of 270 is 285, or west-northwest, at 16 knots. So it's not moving too fast, and it certainly isn't moving slow. That's about what you'd expect to see right there. There is no significant change to the previous forecast track or reasoning. A deep layer subtropical ridge, and I'm going to show this to you in just a minute on the GFS, to the north of the cyclone is expected to remain in place through the forecast period, which should keep the depression moving on a general west-northwestward motion through 120 hours. The NHC model guidance is in excellent agreement on this scenario, and the current forecast track is just an update of the previous advisory track and lies to the north of the model consensus due to the more southerly GFDL model that is considered to be an outlier due to it depicting a much weaker system than forecast. You have to understand that the different models that go into their consensus group, some of them, if they are an outlier, they can weigh on the statistical mean or the average, and if they throw that out, you take that outlier out, then that can change your statistical average or your consensus, and then it's up to the forecaster to interpret all that and provide a track. So this is all talking about track forecast. Here we talk about intensity. Once the aforementioned dry air entrainment process abates, convection, or shower and thunderstorm activity, should redevelop near the center since the system has a very robust circulation, as noted in recent SSMI and MSU microwave satellite data. Basically, there are satellites that can peer down on this thing and sort of see its bones, if you will, just one way to put it, and it indicates a very well-defined circulation. It just needs deep convection, and off it goes. However, vertical shear conditions are only expected to be marginally conducive for slow development to occur over the next 48 to 72 hours. By days 4 and 5, more significant intensification will be possible, notice possible, when the cyclone is located over the warmer Caribbean Sea and in a more favorable upper-level wind environment, at least what they're thinking now. The intensity forecast is similar to the previous advisory and is close to a blend of the ships. I tweet about the ships model often, and the LGEM intensity forecast models. So this is the forecaster's reasoning behind the forecast, and you can see an initial intensity of 35 miles per hour going up to 75 miles per hour by day 5. So what does all this look like in the real world? Well, here's our tropical depression. Here's the dry air around it. The larger circulation has pulled some of that dry air in. It's also been injected in there just a little bit, probably, due to this upper level low to the north of this the depression. So the dry air has kind of been pushed in, and that helps to knock the convection down. So this is what he's talking about when he mentions the dry air to the northwest of the circulation. Looking at the ship's model, remember he mentions the ship's model. You can see here the ship's showing 69 knots at day 5, which is almost 80 miles per hour, but a blend between that and a different set of model guidance for intensity. The forecaster went with 64 knots, which is 75 miles per hour. So they follow this model, the SHIP, Statistical Hurricane Intensity Prediction, and it shows a steady increase with more modest strengthening here at the end of the period when it sees, the model sees, better conditions ahead, including warm water temperatures, probably low wind shear in the atmosphere, and that's why it's showing intensification. The ridge that he talks about, that the depression is south of a deep layer ridge, well, this is what it looks like in 3 days. I figured I'd split the difference. And this is the mid-levels of the atmosphere. The depression will be located about right here. And this is the big mountain of air to the north that is dense and thick. Big Bermuda High sitting there. No way that this can turn into that Bermuda High. This is much more dense than the tropical cyclone is, and so it has to go around the periphery of this big area of high pressure, which extends out like a mountain. These are like contour lines, so it's just going to go around the edge of it. Now the question is, will this link up with the high sitting over the Midwest and Texas and just shove this thing on into Mexico like that? That is the big question mark. If there's enough of a break like we see now right here at day 3, then this could theoretically slip in and get into the Gulf of Mexico. That remains to be seen. That's too far out in time for even these good computer models to try to decipher. So there you go. That's a little bit of a long analysis, almost 8 minutes, of what the forecaster is talking about in graphical form. So I hope you find that useful and interesting, and I hope you understood it. All right, I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, my website. I hope you learned something from this. I'll do these every once in a while to try to keep you informed on the details of the science behind the forecast. For HurricaneTrack.com, Hurricane and Hurricane HD, I will have another video blog tomorrow, and we will see what happens as this depression moves westward.